Saxony Whalen.
Are you there, babe? Are you live?
From the Sean and Sax Show
guys,
set
welcome,
in Bluffdale, Utah.
Guys, welcome. Welcome to the Sean and Sax Show. We're live. We're here in the new studio, which is still being worked on. Saxony, well done.
Thank you.
Saxony's never happy with things from a design perspective, and we've spent the last 15 minutes trying to figure out one thing and one thing alone with the podcast set. Right. How to make sure that we get Saxony's shoes.
Nobody cares about our
because
we need to get straight to the juicy stuff today.
This is what I'm trying to, husbands listen, wives listen. This is where I'm trying to share with my wife. 95% of people listen to this podcast. Mm-hmm. They don't know what kind of shoes you have on. And so the 15 minutes that we spend trying to figure out the right camera angle and the right placement of the rug, although it's very important, where's our audience, babe?
Yeah, they listen. Here's the deal, though. How you do one thing is how you do all things.
I know.
And I don't show up half-assed.
You don't. You're good.
I don't care if nobody watches. If I'm going to put this out and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. And I don't care if it takes 15 extra minutes.
Hot. Your outfit's freaking amazing today, too, by the way.
Thank you. Free people, they nail the jumpers.
Sax has these jumpers like you should be like a fashion consultant. So, guys, welcome to the podcast. We did a post earlier. And we had date night last night, and we decided we were going to talk about sex today.
The Sean and Sax Show.
Sean and Sax Show.
With Sax.
The Sex and Saxony Show.
Sex and Sax Show.
This is going to be a multi-episode edition. Because there's a lot of different ways that we can talk about this. There's a lot of different things that we can talk about. It's just like sex. There's lots of great positions in sex, and there's lots of different ways that we can talk about this. And I did a Q&A on Instagram, and it's funny. If I do, hey, ask me whatever, I'll get 600-700 questions that will come in. And I'm like, hey, ask me questions about sex. Crickets. There's like 4. And I think people are really, really, really like, ooh, I don't really know what to ask. Do we get personal? Do we not get personal? But here's an interesting thought. And this is like something that, I was looking at here earlier. The leading cause of divorces is sex.
And money.
It's like, it depends on who you ask, where you go. I Googled like leading causes, and a majority of sites, divorce.com, relationships.com, lawyer.com, healthymarriage.com, it's like in one way, shape, or form, whether it's the intimacy, the lack of compatibility, intimacy, or infidelity, which infidelity, I mean, nobody's cheating if you have a great sex life. It ends up
debatable, but yes.
What do you mean that's debatable?
Because some people just cheat for other reasons that they're trying to fill a void in themselves. Even I would imagine if they have a great relationship.
We could probably go down that rabbit hole, but I from a physical standpoint, if your sex life is off the fucking charts, you think that people still cheat?
In a perfect world, sure. Oh yeah, for sure they would still.
Why?
Because people are some people have fucked up addictions.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll talk about addictions on another episode. But I Googled this, okay? And this is what's interesting, guys, is we're happily married. We're in a monogamous relationship. Mm-hmm. There's some really interesting questions that came in that talk about like, hey, threesomes and this and that and the other and whatever else. And we'll get to those in a second. But there's just some interesting things that I read that I wanted to share really quick. The leading cause of divorce, infidelity or extramarital affairs, trouble with finances, lack of communication, constant arguing, weight gain, unrealistic expectations, lack of intimacy. And then Forbes, it was interesting enough. Forbes, I got this from Forbes.com. They had a really interesting article and a couple cool bullet points and tidbits. Now stop me if you want to discuss any of these, but I felt it really interesting to read some of these things as we're talking about sex, because it's just a fascinating thing to be a grown adult and to see so few grown adults even be comfortable talking about sex, let alone talking about sex. It's fascinating being 45 years old, and when you start talking about sex or intimacy, you just get this huge pushback from people. They're like, oh my gosh, this is sacred, don't talk about this. And what's really interesting is like, I would be willing to bet that if we talked more about it, we'd probably have less problems with it. You know what I'm saying? But what's interesting, here's a couple bullet points from Forbes Advisor on divorce. Lack of commitment is the most common reason for divorce. Marriage is not always easy. So success requires both spouses to be dedicated to their union and serious about making it last. Totally agree with that.
For sure.
That's why it's not surprising that the lack of commitment could spell disaster for a couple. In fact, 75% of individuals and couples cited lack of commitment as the reason for their divorce. This was the most common cause of marriage ending, exceeding even infidelity. lack of commitment.
They're just not all in.
And what's interesting is like, there was a lady that made a comment on my date night post from last night. And it's, you can always tell the people who want to put the blame or put the reason for an unhealthy marriage, unhealthy sex life, whatever, on somebody else. It's like, look, I don't want to air all my laundry or blah, 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 blah. And that's like the biggest red flag. Like, one thing I want to preface this episode with is understanding that, like, when you have two people coming together in a union, you have to take 100% accountability for yourself. Period, end of story. Like, if my sex life sucks, my sex life sucks, right? I can't blame you. Like, I know that that's really hard for a lot of people to say. Well, my husband this, my wife this, my boss this, my whatever. But if my sex life sucks, I'm 100% responsible for that. Would you agree with that statement, babe? Very difficult for a lot of people to understand that, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more. But I pray that people understand and realize that, like, if your marriage is shitty, if your communication is shitty, if your sex life is shitty, it's 100% your fault. Now hear me.
It does take two to tango.
I know, but listen.
But yeah, you have to
but
show
listen,
up 100%.
when you talk about ownership, and whether it's a David Goggins thing or an Ed Milet thing, right? What I'm trying to emphasize and what I truly believe in is that when you can take ownership of yourself, all of it, if you're going to take like if you're going to take the good and ownership of the good and say, I did this, I built this, you also have to take ownership of the bad. And like you said, it takes two to tango. But I've chosen in life, at this stage in life, to take ownership of all of it, right? And I think, honestly, I spent a lot of my life in little boy mode, in blame mode, in whatever. My sex life wasn't good. My communication wasn't good. But when I chose to take ownership of it and say, like, no, this is my sex life, like, it opened me up to a completely new world in our relationship.
Sure.
Better than any other relationship I've ever had, better than any other sex life I've ever had. Like, and we've both talked about this, like where we are, and it's not a you versus me. It's like, we've chosen to do things in this relationship that we never did before.
Right.
And I think that's what's gotten us to the place that we are. And that comes from ownership. Like, if our communication sucks, I have two places that I can look, you or me. And the one place that I have found that always works is when I look at me.
Right. And I want to add to that, because what I've found in my experience is a lot of times the way we go about our lives, we don't even realize, like disassociation, right? I don't know if you know about that, but look it up, right? A lot of people, they'll disassociate from things that are stressors, or they have trauma around, or there's insecurity around, or overwhelmed by whatever. And so you kind of just numb out those things.
Right.
And it's like, looking at, hey, why am I not really engaged intimately with my partner? Is it me? And I guarantee you'll find at least one thing you're doing that's not serving the intimate connection of your relationship, and just focus on that. It's like, maybe there's so much more to it, but if you can start pinpointing, like, oh, I'm choosing to just be like, I'd rather avoid it if it's not in my face, instead of taking the initiative of putting it in your face and making something happen. Like, that may be just a really good way of start connecting even with yourself.
Right.
Because that's something that I found in my past that I do, and that's why I can speak about it, like disassociating, like
totally. Or you kind of like, I want to put this off. We're not going to talk about this. We're not going to make this a thing. And all that does is just festers. Like, I feel like you and I do this really well. Like not disassociate, but the exact opposite. And a lot of times it causes conflict, to be totally candid. A lot of times it causes really hard conversations. A lot of times it causes us to uncover emotions or things or quote unquote trauma or bullshit from the past that we didn't know was either there or we don't want to deal with, right? But I feel like you and I have chosen to walk into a place of like pain and vulnerability and frustration versus run away from it, because we both know running away from it, not talking about it, hiding it, watering it down, fucks us over more than anything else. Right. Right? Okay.
Yeah, it's like, not, for instance, like, imagine like you're a woman that doesn't like your body. You're insecure about your body. So instead of initiating sex with your husband, you're avoiding it because you don't have to show up naked.
Yeah.
When instead, maybe it's like, maybe your husband actually loves the way you look, and this is all about you, and you're avoiding your own connection with yourself. So your marriage is suffering because you're not willing to let him love what you don't love, and maybe find your own self-love in that experience.
Right.
So it's like, these are some things to ponder. Like, why am I avoiding, consciously or unconscious, connection with my partner?
Right. I'm going to read a couple more of these bullet points. 60% of divorced couples cited infidelity as a reason for their divorce.
60% of divorces?
Infidelity is another leading cause of divorce, with 60% of couples citing a partner's unfaithfulness as a reason their union ended. When a marriage is supposed to be monogamous and one party fails to fulfill this obligation, trust can be lost and the marriage can be broken. Which, I mean, we've talked a lot about this, man. I did a podcast with Brad Lee the other day, and we were talking about, cheating, and I can basically guarantee that you're not going to cheat on me. And I know that sounds really weird to people because, like, there's no fucking way, Sean. Fuck what ifs. Just hear me out for a second. Like, if I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing as a man, and I'm keeping the promises that I made to you, I don't turn into a fat slob. I'm bringing home the fucking bacon. I'm protecting you. I'm dating you. I'm investing in your love languages. I'm keeping the sword sharp. Yeah. I'm communicating. I'm like doing all of the things that we agreed on. The real question is, why would you go fuck somebody else? A lot of people don't like to hear this. This is hard for a lot of people to hear because, she chose to walk out or step out, or he chose to step out. And I understand that. I get that. But step back for 2 seconds, and if you look at the leading causes, these leading causes, right? Infidelity or extramarital affair, troubled finances, lack of communication, constant arguing, unrealistic expectations, lack of intimacy. Like, if you start looking at some of these things, like, if I keep my word to you, why would you go cheat on me? Why would you go? Now, again, if you're like a sex addict and you're like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, there's always exceptions.
There's always an exception, but I think that's a very, 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 very small, minute portion of human beings. Because the truth of the matter is, like, when you talk about lack of communication, constant arguing, weight gain, unrealistic expectations, the unrealistic expectation is, if I married you and you were smoking hot and you turned into a fat balloon and you were 400 pounds, I don't want to fuck you. We didn't make that agreement. I made the agreement to this. No, correct. Sean, that's fucking, how insensitive could you be? What if she got sick? What if? If you really stop and think about it, most people are not there. Most people let themselves go. Most men let themselves go. Most women let themselves go. Just because you got the ring on the finger, I decided I'm just going to let myself go, and we're going to be with each other together forever because that's what we agreed to. And at the end of the day, like, we're not talking about sickness. We're not talking about a thyroid issue. We're not talking about anything. We're talking about laziness. We're talking about the fact that, like, you didn't keep your fucking word to stay hot. Period. End of story. I mean, I don't care what people think about this statement. If you turn into a fat fucking balloon, we're not staying married. And period. End of story.
To be totally honest, like, I don't want you to let yourself go.
That's vice versa. If all of a sudden,
it goes both ways.
If I quit work, that's what I want you to say.
If you quit going to the gym, if you quit taking care of yourself, if you quit pursuing, if you quit being the man, not that you cannot change and evolve, but if you lost the magic of who you are from when we met and when we got married, when we made commitments, if you just like decided to like just say screw it and throw it all out the window, like, we're not obligated to stay together.
Totally agree.
Like, I expect you
if
to
I quit
be your
working
best
out
self.
And I got freaking big ass saggy man tits and the whole
Sat around
deal,
and drank all day.
Just talk about the physical, because I think a lot of people, this isn't what a lot of people want to hear, but it's what they need to hear. The fact of the matter is, like, if you go back and look and you can say, I mean, Sax has had 2 babies. You've had 2 children and you're fucking smoking hot. You're in as good a shape as people that haven't had babies, and you're in phenomenal shape, right? It's a conscious decision. It's a conscious decision.
Sure.
I work really hard. I have multiple businesses and kids and bills and dogs that shit on the floor and this and this and this and this. And yet I'm still in great shape. You know what I'm saying? A lot of this conversation, in my opinion, and a lot of the couples that we talk to and the couples that we work with and the people that we've coached, it's people that just give up. It's people that stop doing what they say that they would continue to do. You married a driven man. Like, you knew who I was. You knew that I was a fucking, like, bull in a china shop. There was no hiding any of that, right? If all of a sudden, that's not to say that I can't like chill out or find Jesus or go in the jungle and drink some ayahuasca and mellow out a little bit. But there's a big difference between me being driven and a provider and then me going and stopping providing and saying, hey, we're going to go live in a tent on the side of the street. It's a big difference, right? And that's okay, but let's be serious. If I don't keep the word that I made to you when we started this deal,
right,
you don't have the obligation to stay with me forever. And I truly believe that.
It's because it's like if you stop loving you and stop caring about life. Like, I'm a very vivacious person. I want to live a very big, full, wildly enriched life, and I need my partner to be that. And everything ebbs and flows. It's not about like, this is not conditional love. But I mean, we have people in our space that they have very similar marriages, and their marriages are thriving.
Right.
And I kind of like that edge to it, because we are driven to show up as our best selves. Even on our worst days, we still find our best, even if our best isn't that great. But we don't ever just say, we don't have a fuck it, I'm over it.
Right.
You know, and I feel like that matters, guys.
Right.
Like, it matters.
Well, I want to get into the sex conversation in a second. Let me read a couple more of these bullet points really fast. How many marriages end in divorce? So what about the famous statistics of half of the marriage? It's true. But when it comes to first marriages, half of which are dissolved. Second and third marriages actually fail at a far higher rate.
Yep.
When do couples divorce? When marriages end, usually some time has passed since the wedding. In fact, the average length of marriage prior to divorce is 8 years, and so on and so forth. There's a couple other things, but these are kind of irrelevant right now. The thing that like I really wanted to talk about with sex, and we've talked about doing like real sex episodes, which I think at some point in time we'll get comfortable enough to do like an instruction type of episode. Are you down for that?
Sure.
I think we should do that. That would be really fun. The point in these bullet points, by the way, came from Forbes, and then there's a couple other articles that came from divorce.com and a few other things. But it was really interesting reading some of this. That it comes down to, so divorce.com calls a divorce 13 of the most common reasons. Number 1 was too much conflict, incessant arguing. Number 2, lack of commitment, which is the same as the Forbes one. Number 3, infidelity at extramarital affairs. Number 4, lack of emotional and or physical intimacy. I think the thing that's really interesting about the sex conversation is this. Like, I don't ever really remember my mom and my dad teaching me anything about sex. I mean, the basics maybe, from like a man and a woman love each other, the birds and the bees kind of a thing. But if you really stop and think back to when you were a kid or a teenager or whatever, the average person, most human beings, did not have any type of proper education on sex.
Sure.
On literal the act of sex. Emotions, yes, when husbands and wives. I mean, you know, I grew up in a Catholic environment and then was in the Mormon church before I got married. And it was like, this topic is taboo. And this is an interesting correlation, right? I'm not a psychologist, a psychiatrist. I'm not a mathematician, but I'm also a fairly smart fella. And if you step back from it for a second and you look at it and realize that essentially the number one cause of divorce is this lack of connection, this physical lack of connection, infidelity, you know, sex being a major problem. Like, this is something that we really never got any education on.
Well, and intimacy is all of those things, in my opinion. It's not just physical. It's emotional. It's spiritual. It's sensual. Like, these all need to be. Yeah, we do need to talk about these, and it starts with being comfortable enough to talk about it with your partner, so you can have these conversations with your children, or you can even have these conversations with yourself. Like, you're willing to
starting the conversation,
even think about it. Like, this is important stuff, and this is what's kept our species alive for a long time now. You know, like, this is not. It shouldn't be taboo.
Making babies is not hard.
This shouldn't be.
Making babies is not hard. Building a sex life, having a sexual connection, having intimacy between these two mammals, these two human beings that were not programmed that way, we weren't taught that way. That's the real fascinating thing in this conversation, in my opinion, because I don't there really weren't books. There really wasn't a push to know these things when I was a kid. When I was a horny teenager, like no one taught me any of this shit, right?
See, and I remember very, very vividly having the talk with my oldest. And I had talked to his father about it first, and he was like, go for it. He's like, you're way more comfortable with this conversation. And to me, it was like, we have a good enough relationship where I just started talking about it with him.
What did you talk about? Like that conversation,
Sure.
Was it the birds and the bees, or how did you talk?
What is the birds and the bees?
I don't know.
It's like,
that's what I'm asking.
No,
what was that
that's a
conversation? Tell me about that conversation.
I talked about the real stuff. I was like, hey, like, I know I'm not going to pretend like you don't know what sex is. I want you to know that, like, I'm here. You can bring anything to me. I basically gave him an invitation to have the conversation. Well, the kid took it immediately. And I thought, well, maybe he's going to have it now. Maybe he'll have it later. Maybe he'll just bank on it. And we just had a whole conversation sitting in his bedroom one day. And I think he was probably, maybe 8th or 9th grade at the time. And he never even dated. And, there was never girls around, never talked about girls. But I didn't want to wait until there was, right? And so I don't remember the exact, because the kid's 21 years old now, but I remember it being like a really comfortable, normal conversation, because I didn't make it weird. I just was like, hey, like, and I presented it kind of like that.
Like you're skirting it. Like, what did you talk about the penis and the vagina?
Yeah,
did you talk about this, and did you talk about that, and did you talk about condoms and things?
Yeah.
And
I also talked about the urges of like, what brings the person, especially like a teenager, to want to have sex. And I'm like, my thing is, I remember reiterating the normalcy of things. Like, I didn't want him to feel like if he's having these thoughts, having these urges, that like there's something wrong with him.
Right.
That I'm like this, and I think I'm just that kind of mom. Period.
Yeah.
Is I'm really good at being like, hey, like, this is normal, and a lot of people try to make things feel like, whoa, no, this is as normal as anything else. I'm the same way when I was nursing my baby. Like, I'm not going to pretend like I'm not nursing my baby. This is normal. Y'all have made it weird. I'm not going to make it weird, and I'm going to make this normal, because it is a very normal thing.
You're like, I'm going to pull my boob out. I'm going to feed my baby.
I'm going to feed my baby. Like, if it offends you that I'm feeding my baby, then you can leave the room, which
Right.
we already talked about this. But I really made it, and I also said, hey, like, if it makes you feel more comfortable to have a condom with you, or to have one in your possession, just ask me. Like, I'd rather you have it than not have it, because I'm not going to pretend like you don't want to,
Right.
that you're not thinking about having sex. And then I also brought in the reality of, I kind of made a joke. I said, just so you know, like, there's no secret tricks. Your buddies they haven't just reinvented the wheel of like how to not get a girl pregnant. And because I remember like that being a thing, is like, oh, well, if you pull out in this, or if you do this, or if she eats this, or this position, this, like, like they discovered something that's never been discovered before, and it's their secret trick. Like, there is no secret trick. And
I have some secret tricks.
Like, I gave him the reality of like, hey, just so you know, if you are going to have sex, you're fully committing to the consequences of what comes with having sex. Because when I got pregnant with him, I was on the pill. I used a condom that broke, and I took a morning after pill. That's just the reality. And I said, so 3 strikes, baby, you're here. Like, you're my kid. Like, you were meant to be on this planet. But at that time, like, I did take precautions, and I still ended up with being a mom. And so I gave him the responsibility, a thought of like, even if he chooses, or not even if, but if he chooses this course of action in his life, if he chooses to go have sex, it comes with consequences that he just needs to know come with the territory.
Yeah.
And so I set him up to be a responsible thinker, to have critical thinking, and have like, no, I don't like to ever present reasons for my children to have shame, or my friends, or anything. Like, I don't believe something so natural as having sex should ever come with shame, ever.
Right.
Ever.
Why do you think so? That's a big thing, though. Like,
it's a very big thing, and that's why I mentioned friends,
because there's a lot of shame around it. You're taught as a little kid, especially in a religious environment, like the shame of sex and the urges and the desires, and I mean, these things are bad and they're wrong, and masturbation is bad and it's wrong, and all these other things. I think a lot of that is carried to adulthood, and you have a lot of 100%. Adults that are still in that same mindset, where they look at sex as being this, like, it's just odd that it's so difficult for people to talk about, right? So one of the things that, like, we're constantly doing between the two of us, I mean, we're always pushing the envelope. And I'm not just talking about sexually, but like just talking about stuff. Like, I think we get more and more comfortable with each other, but I think we're also in the state where it's like, look, man, like, all the cards are on the table. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and our trust deepens all the time.
And so one of the things that I wanted to talk about with this is there's a really good book, one of my favorite books, Don Miguel Ruiz wrote, The Four Agreements. And I think I did this post earlier about our date night. There's a really interesting block happening, in my opinion, with sex, with men and women right now. And I'm blaming none of it. And I think if you blame any of it, it's a problem. If you blame TV, or if you blame porn, or if you blame the internet, or if you blame social media, for all of these other things, like, there's a really interesting dynamic of men not being willing to talk about things or share things because of the demonization of our desires, of who we are as primates, like literally wanting to fuck. Like, that idea in today's day and age is demonized. And I know men, I've had conversations with men where they're like, I want to do these things with my wife, but if I tell her these things, she's going to think I'm, a sex addict, or I've got these issues, or it's a problem, or I'm looking at porn, or whatever. And it's a really interesting dilemma, because without having these conversations, I think this is the reason that the intimacy starts to fall apart. This is the reason people turn to porn. This is the reason that marriages are falling apart. People look for other types of connection, other places, because you're literally married to somebody, and there's a block with you being able to fully fucking open and talk about shit. Like, one of the questions that somebody asked, and we'll get to the questions in a minute, was about like somebody wanting to introduce, a third person to the conversation. You and I have talked about this. Like, we talk about everything. We talk about every single aspect of sex toys, of things, of this, of threesomes, of all of our urges and our desires and our thoughts and our fantasies and all this other stuff. And the reason I bring up Don Miguel Ruiz is one of the four agreements is not to make any assumptions. It's to never assume, right? And one of the things that I think is really powerful for a man and a woman, a husband and a wife to do, is to truly understand, like, if you're married to this human being, sex is a natural part of things, right? If all of a sudden, again, this goes back to the programming of not being open, not talking about things, being demonized, like, your urges for anal sex or for this, that, or the other. I can't talk about that because I read a thing one time, or some religious guy said it was bestiality and you can't do it and all this other shit. I'm being serious. Like, this is like a big thing. Like, and a lot of people are afraid to talk about shit because they think that they're going to be judged. And so they don't. And then on the flip side is when they do start talking about things like this or their urges, their partner makes these wild assumptions that they're A or B or C, or they're this or they're that, or whatever. So what do you say to that? Because you weren't necessarily raised in a very religious environment. I was raised in a religious environment, so I know more of that depth and that training and that programming. But what do you say to that? And what I would really like for you to talk about is to the women, right? To the women who have a husband who wants to fuck, who wants to explore shit, who wants to try shit, who wants to go to the sex store and get some crazy wild toys and really open up his marriage, who wants to talk about every different position and every different fucking hole and every single everything, but yet won't. Talk to the women for a second, because you're good at this. Like, you and I talk about everything and you're open about it, and you've talked about this in the past, but what I would love for you to talk about is like that feeling, like when I bring something to you, that thought process when I bring something to you, and not judging, not saying, oh, well, did you learn this by watching porn? Did you hear this by watching porn? Because what I hear mostly from men is they won't talk to their wife because of how she's going to respond, how she's going to judge, how she's going to fucking critique him and shame him and blame him. And that's the reason that most men stay quiet.
Right. My first thought on that is you this is gospel according to Sexting. We have a responsibility to listen, honor, and invite our men to be vulnerable and to be open and honest with us. And if your husband is even willing to have these conversations with you, that's a blessing. Mm-hmm. Because so many men won't have these conversations and women won't receive them. And that is the number one. That is a huge roadblock that you have both probably silently agreed to. There is never, I would also never try and find a reason that's not spoken or delivered as the like some conniving why. Like, don't go looking for something like, oh, maybe he's watching porn. Or don't go looking down a negative rabbit hole of why he's bringing something to you. Ask him why this came to be. Ask him just in a very curious, like gentle way. Like, okay, I would love to hear this. I am interested in knowing more about what you want, because you're the only person that he gets to have that type of relationship with if you're in a strong, healthy, monogamous relationship.
Well, even if you're not and you're struggling right now, like if you're, and this is, I think this is probably the most important part.
Or if you want to be in that.
That's exactly what I was just about to say.
That's how you
is if you're
create
struggling,
that.
The only way for you two to connect, like if you're struggling sexually, emotionally, if you've been married 8, 10, 12, 15 years, it's kind of dried up. You're in the Sahara Desert. There's no more intimacy. There's no more whatever. Something's got to change. And so if all of a sudden your man, which I encourage men to do, look, step the fuck up, bro. Tell her exactly what you want. That's fucking terrifying for a dude. That's really hard for a dude. And so I think even if you're in a good relationship, but if you're in a bad relationship and you want that tipping point, like you're going to have to expect, like, yeah, we've been married for 15 years. We know each other. We know the buttons to push. We know we have sex every 6 months and we do it the same way, blah, 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 blah. If he brings you that shit, like this is, in my opinion, the most important time is when you are struggling, when you're not like in a really good place. For a guy to be vulnerable and to bring that to his wife, like that moment more than ever will require what you're talking about. And
women are receivers. We are. Feminine energy is receiving. And if honestly, if you can develop or work on or even be more conscious and conscientious about your being open and receptive to him without bringing shame or without bringing shoulds or ridicule or judgment or even interjecting your own insecurities and fear, just let him say what he needs to say. And because that is such a beautiful trust building opportunity that even if it's like, maybe it never even comes to be, but he just wanted to be heard. He wanted to be accepted. Did that
keep
go
going?
on?
Yeah, keep going.
He wanted to be accepted for what he's feeling, and say it is something that like maybe makes you feel uncomfortable or ruffles your feathers. That's okay too. Like, but in that moment when he's presenting it, just receive it. Yeah. Receive it. Right. Doesn't mean you have to deliver. It doesn't mean you have to start doing all the kinky things he wants, but like, be so grateful that he's communicating that to you, because it's so rare.
I can tell you that I, not growing up open about sex, not having discourse on it in my first marriage, really at all. Like I can tell you that I think it's this one. I can tell you that when you and I started dating, and I'm saying this because I really pray that men hear this and women hear this, like, and understand this connection. That was one of the things that I appreciated the most, is like, I shared it. I made a conscious decision when we were dating, like, I'm all in. Like, 2.0 is like, I'm giving you everything. I'm going to tell you everything. I'm not hiding shit from you. Like, I'm not going to pretend that I'm this, but I'm really this, or no, I'm cool with sex once a week or whatever. I was like, no, like, this is who I am. This is what I am. And I can appreciate that a great deal, because, as a man, like, there's a lot of things that we flex on, that we beat our chests on. We're cool or whatever. But emotionally, like, it seems a lot easier to just go find somebody just to fuck and just call it a day and not have any emotional connections than to actually go deep. And this is something that I've really, really, really tried sharing more of and talking more of, especially in the Lion's Den and with Lions and Sheep, is that depth of connection. Is I truly believe our sex life is phenomenal. Like in my opinion, it gets better. It's getting better, right? Like, because we're going deeper. And so when you talk about that depth, like, this is something that I really think can hedge a lot of these issues that couples are dealing with. Is dude's got to be able to step up and say what the fuck he wants. And it might be wild. Yo, I want to freaking bang you on the roof of the house and whatever. And this, I mean, that's not too wild. Like, whatever, you know what I'm saying? But I truly believe that ladies, if you're wanting connection with this man, the simplest way for you to shut him down is to demonize his desires. The simplest way, the quickest way for a woman to shut a man down or to have him completely close off is to demonize his desires, is to take what it is that he's bringing and make it something that it's not, or assume something that it's not. I mean, if this dude's bringing shit to you, like you said, that's a gift, right?
Yeah.
But fellas, you got to be willing to give her everything, right? And I truly believe, like, when you talked about our depth and our trust, we're deepening that because we don't hold shit back. We're not like, and I don't think we're in a honeymoon phase. Like, we've both been married before. We're both like, we're not like 20 years old. We're not spring chickens, if you say, but we're not old by any means. But like, we're like in it. We've got 5 kids. Like, we're in this as much as anybody else. And I truly believe that one of our strengths right now is that we're willing to talk about anything and everything. And we're willing to hear the other person. Like, and truly, like what you said, really want to know why, like really understand it, really want to connect on it. You know what I'm saying?
And it's really beautiful on how much self-discovery can happen too, because have you ever asked yourself, why do I believe that?
Right.
Or like, why do I have that? When you start questioning your own beliefs, like, wait, why do I have this weird, like, oh, I can't do that? Is that my belief? Or was that belief instilled in me as a child?
Right.
And actually, is that really wrong? Or is that really
bad?
Like, start inviting those conversations, and maybe it'd be cool that you'll see over time is that you both start to kind of question the why, and then that's when you can really spark some incredible
you and I are
intimacy.
Of that.
Yeah,
we're really good at that right now.
Yeah.
I think we're going so much deeper in that reality, and if you guys are hearing what Sax is saying, like, this is our spiritual life, this is our emotional life. Like, we're questioning everything. And I want to say this, like, that's not a bad thing. In my opinion, that's the best thing you can do. In my opinion, that's what God is like wanting us to do. Question everything. Go figure it out for yourself. Don't take your mom and dad's testimony, of whatever. Don't take your friends go figure it out for yourself. Like, go really truly build your own reality. We're doing that, like, with sex. I mean, continuing to go deeper, continuing to, like, ask more questions and do more shit and try more shit.
Right.
One thing I want you to, and I'm kind of putting you on the spot, and Sax didn't know this beforehand, but Sax is a gamer. Like, what do you say, and I can say this because I know that a lot of couples look at what we're doing and how we're living our life, and we choose to be really open with it, and I'm cool with it. Like, I'm cool with sharing a picture of your freaking ass. Like, it's not like rated R kind of a deal, but like, you wear these cheeky bikinis, and we were in the bathtub last night, and I took a really rad picture of you from behind. Like, you're not like seeing ass and tits or whatever, but like the candles were all lit, and we're in the bath, and like, I like to kind of document these moments, and I shared it, and people are like, that's too much. Like, that's sacred. And I'm like, we're in the goddamn bath, right? I took this picture, and I wanted to share it with the world because this is who we are, right? And I'm cool with it, and I know you're cool with it.
I love unsolicited opinions and advice.
Oh,
I just love it so much.
No, what I want you to do, like, is share with the fellas. I can talk all day long. Yeah, go talk to your wife. Tell her you want to do this. Tell her you want to get freaking butt plugs and sex swings and, bang in the backseat of the car and whatever. But talk to the fellas for a second, the men, on how to approach their wife, number one, but really, like, how important it is for them to how important it is for me to bring shit to you. Like, if you're a dude listening to this, imagine you're coaching men right now on, you're a smoking hot wife. You love sex. We're very active sexually. You've had 2 kids. You've got Hashimoto's and other things. Like, there's lots of women that have lots of problems and lots of things, and my wife this and my wife that, and blah, 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 blah. But talk to the fellas on, like, how to bring that shit to their wife. You know what I mean? Realistically. Not like some airy-fairy book that they're going to read, but from Saxony Whalen, who's smoking fucking hot. I mean, you're the shit. We all know that.
Thanks for your...
not coach, but share with men for a second on how they can bring that to their wife and like what that looks like. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of dudes who are like, you don't know my wife. I already know it. I know people listening to this right now because we've literally coached thousands of people.
Yeah.
I know that men are going, you don't get it. You don't know my wife. You don't know that. Da, da, da. Like, look, I think a lot of women they all kind of have the same needs and desires. We all have the same freaking deeply rooted things. So talk to the ladies for a second.
Or no, you said talk to the men.
Or talk to the fellas, sorry.
Your approach is everything. Your approach and your tone matter, right? And so if you want to really get vulnerable and you don't know how to do it, start off with an approach that caters to her. And this is not manipulation. This is, if you want something, your best, like if you're going to go out for a job, how are you going to show up? You're not going to show up like, hey, babe, so I really want to start fucking you in the ass. You should really probably do that because it's not that weird. But if you're like, hey, like you take her out on a date, you kind of, you're catering to her emotional needs, and you're just like, hey, so I've been thinking about some stuff. Like, I love our relationship. I love our sex life. I love the way we're just building this life together. But, I really am super attracted to you. And I've been thinking about some stuff that like, I want to explore with you. And you make it in a way that's, you mean that. To me, I would feel like that's truth, right? That's not manipulation. But it's in a way it's easier for maybe someone who isn't comfortable having these conversations to, you're giving it this, you're warming her up, right? There's like foreplay to this conversation. Women love and they need foreplay. We need that. You can't just start fucking pounding us with shit. Like, it doesn't, our bodies love that warm up. Same with us in those conversations. If you start, it's like, I'm really attracted to you. I really love our sex life. Like, but I've been thinking about some things that I really want to go deeper with you on. I want to start exploring more with you because like, I love what we have and I just want more. So
let me ask you something. How much more effective is that than me coming to you going, dude, why won't you let me fuck you in the ass? Or why won't you? Or why won't this? Or why won't that? There's blame in that.
Exactly. And there's an undercurrent and undertone of, this is your fucking fault.
Right.
And women are like we have these little, like, we can, even if we smell that you're trying to be like, bitch, this is your problem, we're going to be, well, fuck you. Like, and so, and it is, because if you connect, if you have a conversation, you connect with our emotional needs and you build us up, like you make it, like just in those words I shared, that makes me feel confident.
Right.
Because you're praising and you're, and maybe it's because maybe part of this is because my love language is words of affirmation. So when you start feeding verbally into the conversation with me, I'm going to be way more open and receptive, right? But you're praising what we have and you're just acknowledging you want more. You're not saying, there's no like, oh, well, it's not good enough, or we don't even do this. There's no lack or scarcity in the conversation.
So what if, let's talk about this. What if she's a total bitch? What if you've been a total dick and like it's at that point where like you guys are just strangers, you guys are just roommates, right? Now you're not divorced. You don't want to get divorced, but what do you do if you've gotten to a point where we don't have the sex life we want? We're not
real
connected.
Freaking down to earth conversation. You say, listen, we've been married for 10 years. We both know our sex life sucks. We both know that like we're not living at our full potential. We're not deeply connected. We're not having the growth in this marriage that either of us want. And you can say, I don't believe that you would disagree with me on this. So we're at a stalemate. We either change shit, we either freaking hard turn right this ship and go fucking somewhere else with it, or we should fucking do us a favor and be done. And that's a hard conversation, but that's real love to me.
Right.
That raw, honest, like, hey, because is that not true? Sure. I guess the third option is you can just stay in complacency and be silently dying together. I mean,
Right.
you can do that. To me, there's only two options.
Yeah.
You either change it and you both agree, okay, radical change.
Right.
Or let's get the fuck out, because why would we want to live in a relationship where there's not love? And no one got married to have
Sure.
a sexless, miserable life existence
Totally
with
agree.
another human being. I don't believe anybody did.
Totally agree.
And so that's a hard conversation. That's real love. I would want my partner to have that real and raw conversation with me, because
Right.
then what am I going to say?
Right.
That's not the truth.
That conversation might take a little bit of time. It might, you know, you might have the storm off, I'm pissed off, whatever, but it might, I truly believe that that's what's causing most people to be in the situations that they're in. You know, we've shared that story about DJ so many times, one of my clients, and long story short, you know, he ends up cheating on his wife and goes down the path of making some really terrible decisions. And again, well, I shouldn't say terrible. It caused a lot of chaos in his life.
Sure.
It caused a shit ton of chaos in his life, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. And again, to make a long story short, he came to me and he's like, dude, this is this is where I am, whatever. And I said, dude, you've only got two options. Either end it right now or go have a real conversation with your wife and tell her exactly what you want. And he's like, if I tell her what I want, these are both very Mormon people who, again, were not raised with sex, not raised with, and he just wanted more adventure. He wanted more spice. He wanted more openness in his relationship, and he didn't know how to talk to his wife. So instead of telling her that, he chose to go have an affair and do a bunch of things that he ultimately didn't really want to do, right? And he ended up sitting down, having this conversation with his wife, as they shared with him. I said, you know, set the table, literally take her out, like just put it all out there. And I'll never forget, as long as I live, him calling me back and going, dude, like, it boggled my mind. He said, what do you mean? He's like, she literally looked at me and said, why didn't you tell me any of this? Like, this is the same thing that I want. And it's fascinating that I think a lot of us, because the truth is, both of us, like men and women, a lot of us were raised the same way. It's not like women were taught about sex 97% more than men were, or this or this. Most people just flat out weren't. We had a sex ed class back in the day. Maybe we did, maybe we didn't. But the truth of the matter is, like, I believe that both parties, both people are kind of standing on the other side of the table, kind of in their own fear, in their own lack of connection, lack of true understanding how to have these conversations. We feel like we're going to be judged because maybe in the past we have been, or maybe we're just not comfortable, or that's our own trauma and our own shit. And so we stand there in this place of not communicating, not connecting, and it actually causes us more chaos. It causes us more friction and more contention.
Yeah, and say the roles are reversed. Say you're like me and you're totally comfortable having this conversation, and because there are these situations, right? And so, and your guy, you know, maybe he's not really coming to, like, he's not forthcoming, right? Take the initiative. I love taking the initiative of, like, hey, like, what do you want? What do you want more of in our marriage? Like, what could I do to, you know, to bring more spice to it? Because he might be so terrified to have this conversation, but if you can say, you know what, like, I genuinely want to know, and I genuinely want more from my marriage, so ask him.
No, but so let's talk about this for a second, because Sax does this, and Sax has done
like,
this
I'll
in the
do
past. No, but hear me, because I know that I speak for a lot of men, and I know that there's a lot of men that are very much like me, because I was like this at the very beginning, because I had been programmed prior that was like a trap. Right? What do you want more of? Or what can I do more of? Oh, fuck. Like, and my brain is going this and this and this and this and this and this and this. And I want to, but what am I thinking? Where am I really at? And I truly believe, like, this is literally what the statistics are. The lack of intimacy, the lack of connection, the communication. I mean, it's just flat out communication. Every single one of these sites all talk about communication, like literally arguing too much, you know, not having the connection. And so when Sax would ask me these questions, my initial response was, well, you know, I'm good, or, you know, maybe some more blowjobs, or, you know, blah 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 blah. And I knew in my mind that I was lying. I knew in my mind, I shouldn't say lying, I wasn't telling you everything. And I've learned in our relationship, and you've helped me with this. We've talked about this. You've helped me with this, where I started, like, yo, if you're gonna ask me, I've gotten to a place now where, like, I'm telling. I'm in. Like, I'm going to tell you the shit, right? And you've done a really good job holding space for that. And I think this goes back to that Don Miguel Ruiz, don't make any, like, ladies, ask your man. But fellas, let me give you a little bit of advice. If she's going to ask you that question, you're like, oh no, we're good, I'm fine, and you're not, you're doing yourself a radical disservice.
Yeah.
Because if she tees that up and says, hey, you know, what do you want more of? And you're like, well, you know, I don't know, maybe some like snacks in bed or something like that. But you're like, yo, I want to fuck you in the ass. I want to do this. I want to get some sex toys. I want to do whatever it is. Like, I promise you, that builds more trust and more connection than anything else. Would you agree with that?
And you teach your partner how to treat you. So it's like, if I'm going to be open and receptive to getting the response, whatever it may be, in turn, you're probably going to behave the same way with me when I bring something to you, and not just sexually, just anything.
Sure.
And so that's a really good culture to create in your relationship.
Yeah.
To where you can bring things and they're not shunned or judged or avoided, because like, you don't want your things that matter to you, whatever that may be,
right,
to be shunned and judged and shut down. Like,
right.
Like, that's painful.
Yeah.
Because guys, and I've said this many times before, it is such a privilege to be chosen by a partner that you're going to be my life buddy.
Right.
We're going to do shit together, me and you. Well, I take that so to heart. Like, Sean chose me to be his life buddy, and vice versa. So why wouldn't I want to be the best life buddy possible, to not only help support you in your dreams, you support me in my dreams, but us to grow and be enriched to the most beautiful potential we could possibly be in all areas of our life? Because, well, then if you don't want that for me and I don't want that for you, then why are we together?
Yeah.
Like, because what if there's someone else out there, and I'm not promoting divorce, I'm actually very anti-divorce, honestly. What if there's somebody else out there that would help
right.
you live a more vivacious life? Like,
right.
And just think about that. Like, this person of all the people in the whole world chose you. What a blessing that
right.
is. Instead of resenting them for all the things they don't do, like, this motherfucker chose me.
Yeah.
He married me.
Right.
He wanted to provide and protect and help me raise these babies or whatever it is you're doing with your life. Like, that's an honor. So the least you can do is be open to this person's their ideas of what more means to
right.
them. Right now, there's always exceptions. I always go to because I'm very like literal when I talk. But it's like, yes, there's guys that there's this, and there's women that this. Like, I get that.
Right.
But I don't also like live my life by the exception. I live by radical truth.
Right.
We live by radical truth. You know what? Like, maybe if you start speaking radical truth to each other, a lot of the fucking problems that you have in your personalities, in your commitment, in your intimacy, in your laziness, and your lack of accountability to yourself and to the other person might actually start dissolving, because you're not co-signing on each other's bullshit.
Yep.
Because I know what that looks like. And people love, a lot of times they will pick a partner that will co-sign on their bullshit. Well, cool. So what if you're 10 years in? I have seen, like people that together as a couple, they lose hundreds of pounds because all of a sudden they're both like, no, we're sick of being obese. Yeah. Let's be fucking rock stars.
Right.
And they together then take that hard right turn, change their lives. Don't think that nothing's fixed.
Right.
Like, nothing's fixed in life. The life is full of flow. So never, ever, ever, ever say just this is the way it is.
Right.
Because radical truth is crazy uncomfortable, but God, it's like once you've tasted it, oh, it's the best buffet in town. It just is. I love it and I hate it, but I love it more than I hate it because it is what it is. It's truth.
And when you talk about it being this ever-flowing thing, sex is the same way. Mm-hmm. Like, it's you spend enough time together and it's like, well, how many other ways can we do this, or what else can we do? And it's like a never-ending experience. Mm-hmm. Would you agree? Oh, yeah. And that's where that communication and that true desire, like, look, nobody wants to be miserable. Like my good friend Jesse Elder, my good mentor friend, he said something a long time ago. There's one thing that everybody on planet Earth has in common. We all want the same thing. He's like, we all want to feel better. Everybody wants to feel better. Everybody does. Even people that are like morbidly just freaking hating life and just mad at everything and mad at everybody. Deep down, they really want to feel better.
Sure.
Everybody wants to be loved. Everybody wants to have connection. Everybody wants to be, you know, together in some way, shape, or form. So it's kind of like, it doesn't matter if you've been married 1, 2, 7, 10, 15, 20 years. If you're in a spot where it's like, bleh, like change that shit. Like legit change that shit.
And take the responsibility on as your own. Like,
right.
I am 50% of this marriage. It's
Right.
you and me. And if my partner's not initiating it, then I'm going to initiate it because I love us enough to do that.
Right.
And I don't want to see us fail. And I don't want to, but also on the flip side is if you're having these conversations when things go the opposite direction, say there's health issues, say you are aging and you're getting into, your wife's going through menopause, like there are dramatic changes that will happen that, you know, you can now already have the foundation of the conversation that you can talk openly with your partner, like, hey, this is happening with my body, or hey, I'm having erectile dysfunction. Sean does not have the problem. I kind of pointed to you like you did, but you're a man. That was what I was alluding to.
If you're listening, she just pointed at me.
But it's
we
like
don't have that issue.
To have a conversation where you can talk about anything,
right.
even the struggles
right.
in sex, like, and know that it's going to fall on a soft spot,
yeah.
like it's a safe place to land.
Right.
Like that's a true friendship. That's a true commitment. And that to me that's intimacy.
Right.
Intimacy is not just like the sexy, gushy, like yummy stuff. It is like, I trust that you're my buddy. They're like, hey, this is what's up.
Sometimes you get the soft cushy, right? Like Sax is very emotional, very like loves kissing. Last night, you know, I'm not a kisser. Like I'm just not
a kisser. It's
right.
my favorite.
She loves the kissing, loves the whole thing, the intimacy, the romance. Again, it's the warming up, the whole thing. But there's also a time and a place where like, look, we're just going to fuck. Like, let's just call it what it is. This is where I'm at. Here's what my needs are. And we serve each other that way. We take care of each other. We understand each other that way. And I think there's a lot of rules around sex. There's a lot of weaponization around sex with men and women that causes a lot of resentment. A ton of fucking resentment. Like you and I talked about this when we were dating, remember? I was like, number one, sex will never be a weapon. You will never use it as a weapon, and you can't ever say no. Now, hang on. I'm prefacing it. Let me finish the sentence. There was a comma. If Sax is puking in the freaking toilet, I'm not like, yo, let me bang you really quick. Like, there's obviously, like I said, exceptions to that.
There are,
but it can't ever be like, no. Right? Like, and this is something that we're going to get to in a second with some of these questions is, you know, I'm tired or I'm this, I'm that, whatever. We're always fucking tired. Like most of the time we're tired. We're running around. We got 5 kids. We got businesses. We got dogs. We got things. You know what I mean? If you really stop and think about it, a lot of people are tired. Yeah, we have our moments and we get excited and we're ramped up and we're ready to go and we drink a Red Bull and we're like ready to go fucking do some shit, right? But if you think about it, majority of the time, like in the mornings you're tired because you just woke up, and at night you're tired because it's the end of the day. It's just what it is, right?
I'm tired a lot because I have Hashimoto's. Like,
right.
I'm tired.
Sax is tired a lot.
I basically went from like a kangaroo to a sloth.
No, you're not a sloth. That's not the most accurate description, but I get
As
it.
I said that a lot, I was like, maybe I'm just sleepy like a sloth, but I get a lot
close.
done during the day.
But you definitely am more tired
I retract that.
than you were, right?
Oh yeah.
You're tired more than you were.
But I don't use that as an excuse.
You've never used
show up in my marriage.
You've never used it as an excuse. But I think something that I want to say to this, because we got a couple questions about this, like she's always tired, I'm always tired, whatever. What does that have to do with anything? What does that have to do with anything? If you're tired, you go to work. You got to be at work, right? You still go to work. You're tired. You still do this. You still do that. Your kid needs to eat. Still make them food. Sex is no different. Right? Like we have primal urges and primal desires. There's a connection between human beings. Like make no mistake, like that's just how it is.
Right.
And it will always be that way. Right? And so it's like when you stop and think about that for 2 seconds, like what does tired have to do with anything? What is like we don't need to have 7 hours of fucking sex. Like at the end of the day, we can both be tired and we can freaking knock it out in 10 minutes. Yeah. Like plain and simple, done and done. If that's what it takes to connect with your partner, then why aren't we doing that? Why aren't you doing that? We do. But like really stop and think about that. Like we've got to be all dolled up and it has to be the perfect environment and the perfect scene and no. Sometimes you just fuck. Sometimes it's just what you do. Both sides, you and me, men and women, right? If she's got a higher sex drive and she just wants to fuck. If he's got a higher sex drive and just wants to fuck. Like, that's something that's really, really, really important is like a lot of people, I mean, I did a Q&A and there were a bunch of these questions about she's always tired or I'm always tired and what do you do? Well, you should just fuck. It's what it is. You just have sex. Yes?
Yeah. You texting Richie?
No.
Because that one went off.
I know.
They're on a 30-minute
I don't know what's going on here.
I think they're on a 30-minute. They have to reset every 30 minutes. I don't know if he knows that.
Yeah, but it's fine.
Okay, clip back in.
I want you to talk about that for 2 seconds, like about being tired, because you're a woman who has Hashimoto's. You have 5 children. We have businesses. You work out every single day.
Yeah.
We have dogs that bark nonstop. They're always chasing around. You have your own passion, your own business.
Let me answer the question. What it is it's I'm a team player. So even if I don't want to have sex in that moment, if you want to have sex in that moment, like,
Richie,
I'll figure it out. And, it's like sometimes, like, I only want to, like, 40%, but I'm a team player.
Right.
Like, it doesn't take a lot of effort sometimes. Other times I'm full effort, right? But that's the thing is, like, you can't judge a quickie to a full-on epic make out romance session. Like, it's all good.
Right.
And it all averages out to be your sex life.
Right.
We have plenty of times that we just quickie it, and that's great. Like, cool. Do I love the full-on make out sessions that turn into, like, a long whatever? Absolutely. But like you said, we have a lot going on. So I don't judge any of it.
Yeah.
But, like, the whole, like, no thing, that to me, it's like, I just am a team player about it.
Right.
Like, and so are you.
Yeah.
We just, if we just make it happen. I don't make a big deal about it. Like, it's like, cool.
I think a lot of people weaponize sex too. I think a lot of people will use sex as a weapon. It's almost like going back to being a kid. It's like a reward for something. Like, you're going to be rewarded for this, that, and the other. And that goes back to childhood shit. That goes back, but that's a terrible, terrible, terrible way to have a sex life.
Yeah.
That it's a reward for something, because then you're constantly like that little kid, always looking to, like, get praised and did I do a good job and can we do this? And I can tell you there's a lot of men that are in this space. There's a lot of men that like realize, like, that we should just be grateful that we got to have sex.
You get a blowjob now.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh shit, yes, once a year, like, kind of a thing. But there's a lot of men that are in that space where they realize, like, it's like, I should be grateful. I look at it totally different. Like, and I want you to talk about this. You're my wife. Like, if I want to have sex, I'm having sex. Like, if I'm horny, like, we're having sex. Like, doesn't matter where we are.
I know that
what
this
we're
is
doing.
going to be so taken out of context
Good.
for certain people.
I want you to talk about it.
Yeah, but it's like, it goes down to the, like, you're my, like, we chose to do life together.
Right.
If why would I not want you to bring that to me, another bring it to me thing? Like, if you're like, I want to have sex. Like, why would I say no? Because I'm the only person in this monogamous relationship you get to have sex with besides your hand.
Right.
Like, why would I not? Because to me, once that starts,
Yep.
that could very negatively affect the long-term health of your relationship, because who else are you going to have sex with if I'm not having sex with you?
Go down that rabbit hole, because this is a huge fucking problem with a lot of people. And people could take this out of context and hear what I'm saying. Like, if I want sex, I have sex. Like, period, end of story.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So it's you've chosen me to be your monogamous partner.
Right.
If you have urges and I'm not, it's same thing. Like, say I'm having a bad day and I need to just cry on your shoulder.
Right.
Well, if you're like, I don't have time for you.
Yep.
Holy, a woman would be like, what? Like, you're not even here for me. Like, men, and I feel, and then what I've read about and learned about is men need sex like women need that emotional connection. Like,
right.
I need that emotional intimacy from you. I need to feel like you hear me, you see me, my emotions can be held by you in those moments where it's like, who else am I going to go to? You're that person.
You shouldn't have anybody else.
Exactly. And so, and women do have girlfriends, and that's a different level.
None of them should ever be above your man.
I'm talking, it's a different level. And so if you can look at it and use that same, because it is the same.
Right.
Like, I don't want to say, no, I'm not going to have sex with you, because that will not serve the longevity of a healthy marriage, in my opinion. Just like if a man won't ever hold those moments where you are emotional, because women are emotional creatures. We're all emotional creatures, but we have big emotions.
Right.
And we need to ensure that our partner can be strong enough, be grounded enough to allow us to feel that storm, right? And so they are the one and the same, in my opinion. And we are the only people that can give that to our partner.
I think I want you to touch on this too. I want people to understand, especially the ladies, how much power they really have in building, but also tearing down a man. Mm-hmm. Now there's this whole movement thing, and you got like guys like Andrew Tate that are just like these robots and out here, and the Dan Bilzerians where there's never a connection. It's just like you're just out there fucking and you're this robotic, emotionless
creature. And that
creature.
works for some people. That's what they want.
But that's a very small.
No, but I'm just saying that's okay. There's nothing wrong if that's the life they want and the way.
Let me finish.
Cool.
Let me finish.
Mm-hmm.
So what I was going to say, like that's their jam, but mm-hmm. I don't believe that that's most men.
Yeah.
Most men, like they that connection there, like they want that. Like we sign up to be vulnerable. We want to be vulnerable. Like we understand. Men understand. Like. You go back and look at whether it's the Hollywood movies, you look at the King and the Queen, you look at a lot of these conquerors and these dudes. We went and watched Napoleon last night. Same kind of a thing. Like he was deeply connected emotionally to this woman, right? To his
Josephine.
wife, to Josephine, right? And here he was conquering the world, like killing everybody and whatever. But he was deeply connected, and I truly believe like that's at the essence. Mm-hmm. Like real talk. You can go out there and pound your chest, be Johnny Badass, get a fucking ton of hot chicks looking at you, loving you, wanting to freaking ride your dick, ride in your car, spend your money, fly in your jet, whatever. But even those motherfuckers want that connection. And I want like you to talk about that ability that women have to shut dudes down and shut them off. And that's a really dangerous place to be, because once you do that and you alienate that trust and you alienate that connection, it's really hard to get that back. Mm-hmm. It's really hard to get that back. So talk about that for a second, because like that connection and that openness and willingness to know that need, that physical need is, I think, very, very, very important. But also like a lot of women will weaponize and demonize that reality, and it shuts men down.
Yeah. Well, my first thought is that us humans will always get what we want,
right,
one way or another. So if your man wants sexual connection and you shut him down enough times, and I've heard Jordan Peterson talk about this, it's, well, why would he stay with you?
Right.
Like, why would you expect him to stay with you? That sounds threatening, or sounds maybe like, but like, why would he? And why would a woman stay with a man who can't emotionally and won't emotionally connect with her? Like, why would a woman stay with you?
True.
Like, we all want and deserve to have our needs met by ourselves and by our partner. Like, and I take marriage as such a huge responsibility. Like, I don't like, why would you marry someone just to withhold love and connection? Because ultimately sex equals love to a lot of men. And
right.
There's not, we are different. We are very different. And just because you don't want sex or you don't value sex doesn't mean it's not extremely important to your partner. And you're going to be responsible for the consequences of not showing up for your partner. And I pray you don't learn that too late, because that might sound really harsh, because, love is unconditional. No shit, it is. So unconditionally love your partner. Now, it doesn't mean like poor behaviors, but why would you withhold something that equates to love to them?
Right.
And safety and connection. Like, you connect with me through physical intimacy. That's what you change even after. You're just like you're way more grounded. You're way more clear. You're way more lovey-dovey. You're way more appealing to me when you're getting laid. Like, you're cooler to me when you're getting your needs met. What a freaking, like, imagine that. And so it actually serves me, even if I didn't want to have sex. Like, I understand that it's not about just wanting to have sex or not having sex. Like, you don't want to do a lot of shit you do for me. But it's not like, oh, I have to. It's, yeah, like, this is the give and take of a relationship. Now, given I do love to have sex often, so I'm kind of teeing it up like I don't. But there are times that, like, I would much rather just go to sleep because I love my bed. I love to go to bed, and I'm like, okay, we'll have sex. But it's not like, oh, we'll have sex. But there are some times that I would rather just go to sleep.
Yeah.
Just some days. But yeah, like, to me, it's like you have to really take greater responsibility for your life. You have to take greater responsibility for the health of your relationship, and not seeing everything through, it is the way I see it, and that's truth. And that's, how do I say this? Not that's truth, but it's not exactly the way I see it to be true, because you have different needs than I have. We all have different love languages. We have different whatever it may be, right? And so it's honoring the fact that maybe you, just because you don't speak the same language or see it the same, doesn't mean that your way is any better than their way. And we really have to learn to do that dance and honor our partners, their viewpoint, their needs. Like, don't shame it. Like, it is what it is. If you want to be with someone just like you, then maybe start being with a woman instead of your husband. Like, maybe, well, you know, who knows? But like, it is what it is, guys. And it's, to me, it's a pleasure and a responsibility to try and be the best wife I can be, because you chose me, and I'm grateful for that. And I chose you, and you do the same. Like, there's many times that Sean doesn't want to take me on date night because he's stressed or he's tired or we're not getting along or whatever it may be, and he does. You do. Like, you show up to date night, and sometimes we bicker the whole night, but you still are showing up, because that's the consistency of you're doing what you set out to do in this relationship, and you know that ultimately feeds into the type of marriage that you want to have.
Right. Keeping your word. Yeah. Keeping the connection.
Let's get to the questions.
You want to?
Yeah.
You don't want me to ask you more questions? Because there's...
Well, you can.
We could go down all the rabbit holes. There's so many different ways, like, to have this conversation, and there's a lot of, like, things that I want to talk about. Like, I think that you and I have been so radically open with our relationship, and I think that God's given us this platform and this gift to do it. And I think that's the reason our podcast is blown up and why people love it and appreciate it, because it's like, these are conversations that not very many people have. Like, you see it statistically, but the people that we encounter, the literally thousands of people in the Lion's Den, thousands. There's thousands of people, almost 4,000 people in the Lion's Den. Like, you start seeing patterns. You start hearing a lot of the same things over and over and over again. And it's like, this is why we have a lot of these conversations, man. It's because if 50%, that literally the statistics are half of the people listening to this podcast right now have either been divorced or will be divorced. That's just the math. That's just the statistic. And it's the statistic that if you've been divorced and you're remarried, you have a higher likelihood of getting divorced, right? There's a lot of fucking people struggling with this conversation, with sex, with intimacy, with what we're talking about. So I don't give a fuck if it ruffles people's feathers. I don't care the social, acceptance of the conversation at the end of the day. Like, we could talk about the science, and we could talk about this, and you studied in college, the anthropology and why men do this and women do this and mammals do this and all this other shit. And I think, we're in a day and age now where it's like, why would you want to be miserable? Like, before we get to the questions, like, really think about this. And this is kind of the rhetorical question, because we're not. But there's a lot of people listening to this that are like, why do you choose to be miserable? Why do you choose to have so many rules and labels and shit around your marriage, your relationship? If you chose to be with this motherfucker, if you chose to be with this person, go all fucking in, man. Like, go all in. Choose to go all in with this person. There's no one on planet Earth that I would give more cards to than you. There's no one on planet Earth that you should be talking to more than me. There just isn't. There's no one that I would have a conversation with over you. There's no one on planet Earth that I want to have, that I want to share my deepest, darkest fantasies, fears, emotions with, right? Like I said this earlier in my post, like your marriage should be your home, not a prison.
Right.
Your marriage should be the thing that empowers you, lifts you up. And the truth of the matter is, like, a majority of men want to fuck. We have very primal, sensual, carnal desires. And that's not bad or that's not wrong. That's just how it is. And so I think the more we have these conversations and open this shit up, the more you share, because the truth of the matter is, like, you are goals. We are goals. Like, I hear people say that all the time. And why would you not want to be? Like, Ryan Stewman said this one time, and I really appreciated this about it. He's like, we should want to be goals.
For sure.
You know what I'm saying? We should live a fucking badass life that inspire a lot of people, that motivate a lot of people. And that's the reason I don't have a problem sharing, like, fucking our sexiness and your sexy ass body and the whole thing. I'm not pimping you out on OnlyFans, but, like, let's talk about what it really is. Like, if you're fucking, like, living this life and you're open and you're growing and you're vulnerable, like, why would you hide that shit? Why as a man would you downplay your sexual desires? Why as a woman would you, like, hold your man hostage or villainize or demonize this dude? This is your fucking man. Now, fellas, if you're a fat sack of shit and you let yourself go, get back on the fucking bike and let's go. Ladies, I don't give a fuck how many babies you popped out. You popped out babies and you're sexy as shit. You got a six-pack. There ain't any fucking excuses. Oh, you're busy? Welcome to the fucking club. Oh, you got a couple kids running around? You can't find the time? Make the fucking time, motherfucker. Get to the gym.
I have
Strengthen
two
that
friends
shit up.
that have over 5 children, and they both look incredible.
Fucking
and
shredded.
They were both like working moms.
It's
So,
just how it is.
Yeah.
So, like, okay, so I just wanted to say that. But let's talk about this, because let's get to a question. Because this is one of the questions. Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, we had a little snafu there. And by snafu, I mean the batteries ran out. So we're back. Those of you that are listening probably just heard a little cut in it. Those of you that are watching, we're in new outfits because we changed and it's a new day. But look, this is real. Like, this is what I love about our podcast, love about us, is it's just real as shit. Like, the batteries ran out. We did not know where. Richie, come check this, please, the level. What? No, we're good. We're audio's rolling. You do your thing. We have Richie back back in the hood, and so he's getting everything dialed back in. Our cameras have basically been dormant, and we spent a couple months just kind of winging it. You know what I'm saying? And now that we have the creative genius back. Yesterday, our cameras overheated. Everything was just bad. So we were talking, though, but it's all good.
We did not take it as a sign we should stop, however.
No.
Power through.
We just keep going. But we literally had to go places last night when we realized the sound was off, so we went and handled our shit. Now we're back. We were discussing time and having no time and saying that we don't have any time. So we're going to get to these questions because this is about where we cut off yesterday. So, babe, we're going to fire right into it. Right?
Rock and roll,
okay?
daddy-o.
Great job, by the way. You look hot. Rich, hang out for 2 seconds and come. I got just a blasting level here. Will you check this really quick? You're fine. Don't worry about it. If you're watching this, this is Richie. Richie meet the world.
Oh,
World Richie. So a question came in, said, here, let's talk about this one, baby. Hubby that complains about no sexy time but never makes the first move.
Ooh,
we talked about this yesterday and had a really good answer.
Yes.
Let's see if you remember.
I truly, a man who is telling you that he wants more sexy time but isn't pursuing you is basically, in a roundabout way, not the best communication skills way, telling you he wants you to pursue him.
Yes.
In my opinion. And I think that that's great. I think that we all have different times of our life that we want to be pursued more, or some of us have more desire to be pursued than be the pursuer. And I think that he's telling you in his own way that he wants you to pursue him. And I'm also a pursuer. And so that's kind of the dynamic of our relationship.
Yeah.
You love to be pursued. Sorry, what?
No, go ahead, finish.
And I would say in our relationship as a whole, I've been the majority pursuer. And I don't think that there's any weird dynamic with that. That's the way you...
Not always.
Overall, for sure.
No, when you talk about it, there's a difference between initiation and, like, pursuing.
That's what I'm talking... Okay,
sex, I think the first, like, 2 years, I think the tides are turning a little bit.
Yeah.
But sex has, like initially when we first got married, you were definitely the initiator of sex. You initiated it more than I did. Not that I wasn't down. Like it was always great, right?
Right.
But you initiated it more. I think the tides are turning and I'm initiating it a little bit more.
Yeah.
But this question, it's not a matter of like, I think he's telling you that. He is telling you that. He is telling you that. Like if a husband is saying, and I've told, Sax and I have talked about this, where I've said, look, I want more sex. Like and even though we have a lot of sex, we have sex almost every day.
Yeah.
Majority of the time, I think, encapsulating our entire marriage, we have sex almost every day.
Yeah.
There's a couple days that we'll go, whatever, we're sick or not feeling good, but we, for the most part, have sex almost every single day. But it was interesting because I would tell Sax, I want more sex. Like, I want more. And it's one of those things where it's like, well, okay, well, what are you talking about? Like more like 3 times a day, 5 times a day, what? And really it was I wasn't feeling fulfilled. I wasn't feeling desired. I wasn't feeling connected. And so I wanted her to pursue me. Where there were some times where like you weren't in it, you weren't doing it. And so I was doing it. And that role reversal was a problem for me. Right. And I didn't know how to talk about it. And I think a lot of dudes struggle with this because the woman, listen, and this is something you can talk to, but ladies, like, here's the deal. We've already talked about this man wants to have sex, period. Yeah. Your sex drive is not the same as my sex drive. And most dudes, again, if you're getting your hormones checked and you're healthy, great. Some dudes just don't give a shit because their testosterone is totally gone. They haven't gotten their hormones checked. They're a fat fucking slob or whatever else. But I truly believe that most men want to have more sex.
Yeah. But
men also want to be pursued and desired. Like, I know at any point in time, I can come in, take your pants off, and we can go to town. Right. I know that if I come start kissing you, loving on you, that we're gonna have sex. I already know that, right? I want you to come to me. I want you to, like, when I show up at home, have some crazy shit on and like grab my dick right when I walk in the house. Like, I want that.
Yeah.
Right? Men want that. Men want to know that they're pursued. Now, this is the caveat. Fellas, if you've turned into a fat slob, if you let yourself go, if you're not keeping your word, if you're looking at porn, if you work 20 hours a day, if you're lying, if you're cheating, if you're emotionally disconnected, guess what your wife doesn't want to do?
Or if you're not being nice to her.
Yeah, she doesn't want to fuck you, right? It's just plain and simple, right? And so there's this interesting dance, and I think a lot of women need to hear this. Like, at the end of the day, if your man has totally gone sideways, you owe him the responsibility of telling him. Say, look, you're fat. I'm not attracted to you. And at the end of the day, he might bitch and moan and say, well, yeah, you did this or you did that. But the truth is, I'm just telling you as a man, you come at me and start telling me I'm fat and I'm whatever, and I am, guess what's going to happen? That's going to piss me the fuck off. And I'm not going to be pissed off at you like, screw you. I'm going to be like, shit, she's right. And guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to go hard as shit. And 99.9% of the men listening to this right now, and women listen to this too, tell your man the truth. If you're like, no, you're fine, I'm still attracted to you, and you're not, he's a disgusting, hairy sack of shit, tell him that. Please, for the love of God, tell him that. But back to the question. Like, straight up, men want to be pursued. Yeah. So if your man is handling his business, ladies, if your man is handling his shit, if he's working hard, if he's showing up, if he's bringing home the buffalo, if he's in shape, he's taking care of himself, and he's checking the boxes, you need to be fucking him. You need to be showing him. You need to be pursuing him. Go book a cheap-ass hotel room, a motel down the street, have the nooner, do the deal, whatever. Sax is grossed out by the germs. Ooh. But you know what I'm saying? Like, show your man that you want him. Yes. Even though your sex drive is not what his is, show up. Do it.
I agree.
And we've 100%. Talked about this. Put it in your damn phone, man. Oh, I'm busy. I have kids. I don't think about it. I've told Sax this multiple times. Put it in your phone. Literally just put in your phone twice a month, go fuck my man. And literally just go do it. Now, I'm tired. Doesn't matter. You might not be in the best mood. You might not be in whatever. And I promise you, he will not care if you're all dolled up, if your legs are totally shaved, if your chachi's all fucking shaved. He's not going to care about that. The fact that you walk in at his office, at his work, here, there, or the other, when he comes home and you just bang his brains out, that's what we're talking about.
That's what he's saying. I agree.
Do you concur with that?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Got it. Good. Okay. How to deal with a spouse that won't stop watching porn, which is ruining our sex life for obvious reasons.
So Oh, you should take this
You
one
want me to take
first.
this one?
Yep.
Okay. Well, yesterday we had a really good answer, and
We
Sax
did.
went first, but I'll go first. I'm going to say something that people probably don't want to hear, and a lot of people are going to probably try and argue with me, but I'm not wrong. Pornography does not ruin your marriage. A lack of trust does. A lack of communication does. A lack of insight, a lack of connection, a lack of intimacy ruins marriages. Okay? Saying porn is ruining my marriage is saying like my bald tires on my car are keeping me fat. It doesn't work like that. Okay? Men, in my opinion, there's every psychological person listening to this is going to try and send me an article and tell me how I'm wrong and all this other shit. As a dude, right? My mind is radically creative, right? Our sex life is really, really good. We have sex a lot. We're very creative. We're very intimate. We're very spontaneous.
Yeah.
And that's just who we are, right? I don't have any desire to look at porn because here's what porn really is. Porn is a fantasy land. Ladies, if you want to know, in my opinion, why dudes look at porn is because it's a fantasy land. They get to go watch two people do shit that they wish they were doing. Period. End of story. Now, forget the addiction aspect of things. I get it. People are addicted. People are addicted to freaking, like, not eating. People are addicted to food. People are addicted to drugs. People are addicted to heroin, cocaine.
Yeah,
people are addicted to porn.
But
let me
is
just
used as a numbing agent,
I know,
just as a coping. So there
but
is.
let me finish, and then you take it. Like, I'm talking about the general consensus that are not addicted to porn. I think that most people are not addicted to it, where they need professionals' help. I think men turn to porn because their sex life is boring. They've either lost themselves, their woman has lost themselves, they're radically disconnected, they don't communicate, they don't have like that type level of communication. Remember, let me give you guys an example. Remember when you just went on the hockey trip, right?
Yes.
And you were gone. And you remember how what I was texting you before, like right when you were leaving, like what should we do?
Yeah. Sexting is a really great way of fulfilling the fantasy of and the thrill of sex outside of acting on it, but you can do it with your partner.
Right.
We're huge into that, and I think that that's a really fun way of having like an extracurricular activity without actually having sex, but it's more of like a playful ongoing thing right throughout your day. But there is someone on Instagram who Sean and I both follow. Is it Man Speaks? He talks a lot because he talks about having a former porn addiction, and he goes into it a lot. And there's some interesting information on that. Maybe that's something to look into. But I would have an open conversation with your husband, and not shaming, not in a judgmental way, not in a you're being prideful and better than him.
Porn, right?
Yeah, and better than him. I would open the conversation to asking him, hey, like, what is it about porn that you're drawn to? And start having the curious conversation, because when you approach things with curiosity, it feels less threatening than if you start asking questions.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that anytime you're going to handle any type of hard conversation, if you handle it with curiosity and genuine interest, then you might be able to work together to open up the line of communication.
Right.
Because I would imagine that someone who, quote unquote, is addicted to porn, in your opinion, he's probably already carrying shame with that if his wife already thinks he's addicted to something. Right. So that's that complex thing.
Or even if he's not addicted and he's just looking at it.
I said
and you
she
guys
thinks.
Right.
I'm not saying he is, because that's totally up for debate. You know, like, people can say this or that based on their own prejudices or their own insecurities even, you know. And honestly, we have people in our space that we know they like to watch porn together. Right. So we're not into porn together. Sean doesn't watch porn. I don't. It's like, but, if it's bothering you and it's some type of thing, open that line of communication. Like, that's your person.
Talk about it.
Because if it's really just that he's like, well, I just, maybe he wants more sex. Maybe he wants more thrilling sex. Maybe then now you can introduce sexting to the equation and maybe say, hey, if we start sexting, would that be something that maybe you could start not watching porn as much? And then you can share how you feel in a non-judgmental way. Yeah. Just truly how it makes you feel but not making it about him, because you're going to get a lot more out of it that way.
So I brought that up about me texting you that before we left, not because we needed it. Like, I don't watch porn. Sax doesn't watch porn. It's just not what we're into. Like, we've never have been. We've talked about it when we were dating. Like, man, whatever. We've both seen it, but it's like, eh. Mm-hmm. But I brought that up simply because, like, that's, I know as a man, like, the antithesis, like, of this entire episode is talking about how we haven't been taught. We haven't been like opened up to the conversation about sex with our past and our history and our family, and it's uncomfortable for you. Just look at the conversation. It rarely happens, yet statistically it's the number one cause of divorce, right? So it's kind of like, look, I'm not a rocket scientist, but if most people are struggling with it and we're not talking about it, then perhaps we flip the script and we talk about it, right? Mm-hmm. But I brought that up just because that's something that sometimes I struggle, like looking at you and telling you I'm getting more comfortable, and I'm a jovial little kid sometimes, and I make fun of it and I laugh and whatever. But a lot of times I get uncomfortable, or it is uncomfortable to talk about it. Like, what do I want and why do I want it, and these different things and all this other stuff, right? And so the sexting, or even just call it texting, it's really cool because it creates kind of a safe barrier, if you will. It creates distance where I don't have to see you or feel really uncomfortable, like face to face, or feel the judgment, or, you know, your eyes are judging the shit out of me, blah, 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 blah. And so if you're struggling with that, like, try that. Like, I know it sounds really elementary and really juvenile, but the truth of the matter is, like, we as, you know, human beings are very elementary and very juvenile in a lot of ways. But that's helped us. Would you agree that that has helped us? We talked more about sex while you were gone on that hockey trip than we do normally. Yeah, and we were very, very, very open, and I'm not even going to say like raunchy or whatever, but we were definitely like talking shit like we don't normally talk shit. Mm-hmm. And so to me, it's just like a tool that you use, you know, to create connection. For sure. Right? Okay, cool. Okay, let's see. How do you and the wife fit sex in with the kids around? Wife and I have trouble with this.
We just have sex because we have kids in our house. Like, it doesn't change anything. Like, the kids are not attached to you at all times. Yeah. At any age, except for maybe a baby. And a baby, that's easy because they have no idea what's going on. Like, they're asleep most of the time, so you have plenty of times to go have sex. But no, we don't. Honestly, we don't shy away from having sex. Like, we're very even affectionate around the kids. I want my children to see what all forms of love look like in a marriage. They see us kiss, they see Sean slap my bum, like all kinds of stuff. But yeah, like, if the kids are asleep, we're having sex. We have sex every day, and we have children. So moral story is we have sex when the children are in the house. Now, we're not banging the headboard, or we're not, you know, it's not wickedly wild every time we have the kids over. Mm-hmm. But, you know, there's plenty of rooms in the house. There's a closet we have sex in. Yeah. We have sex in the bathrooms. Like, you know, and I don't think that you should ever use the fact that your kids are in the house as an excuse why you're not having sex. And with that being said, I don't think that children that aren't babies should be sleeping in your bed, because that's sacred. Oh, yeah. That's sacred real estate. We can do a whole episode. Well, I slept with my baby, with my littlest, but beyond the baby, like, I don't believe in that. I know people that have their toddlers and their children in their beds. Absolutely, that's like kryptonite to your sex life. Right. Your children, your relationship with your children should not come before your marriage. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's like, ugh, but it's true. Like, you have to keep your marriage sacred. Right. You have to keep it as the highest priority. This is coming from a woman who is obsessed with being a mom. Like, I love my kids so much. Like, they're a close second. Right. But no, absolutely not.
We have 5 kids, man, and we have a hockey practice, and we have things, and we're here and there and the whole thing. But it's like, we had sex countless times with the kids in the house, right? You could go do this, go do that, put on a movie. I mean, literally, like, if you think about it, I don't know any child, when you sit them down to eat, before they get bored, even putting a movie on or a cartoon on, they'll at least be there for 5 or 10 minutes before they get bored, before they go find trouble or whatever. You throw something on, go put them there, lock the door, go upstairs, bang it out. I think a lot of people have this misconception around sex where it's like everything needs to be perfect, and
rose petals,
the sheets need to be scented and folded, and I've got to shave and clean and make sure that everything is just like perfect. It's like, fuck that shit, dude. Like, let's go fuck really quick. Like, it's just what it is. Like, it's what we do. Yeah. There's nights where it's long and it's great, and you start in the bathtub and there's romance and there's kissing and there's flirting, and then there's times where it's like literally we're freaking in and out, get it done, that's it. Like, we don't need to snuggle and cuddle and whatever. It's like we fuck, boom, we're done. Like, that's it.
And that's just as fun.
And that is. We've talked about that.
Yeah.
Like, I think a lot of people just have this misconception that they're supposed to be like, it's not, that's not this. Look, there isn't a man on the planet that doesn't want to just go into the bathroom and fuck, bend you over the countertop, fuck, and call it a day, right? And ladies, at the end of the day, like, that's hot. Like, we've talked about this. There's a lot of times where we're just like horny as shit, and we freaking smash it in the middle of the day, and we're both like, fuck, that was hot. Like, that's good shit. We'll like high five each other and walk out like we're a team, be like, good job, team.
I actually have to share something with the listeners that just popped in my brain. So we have one of our kids who just likes to like show up at the house, right?
Yeah.
I feel like this will make some people laugh. I'm not going to call the child out, but there's one of our children in particular. Yeah. He just like rolls in. I think he just likes, because our pantry is huge and full of snacks. Yeah. He just like rolls up.
He's a teenager.
Rolls out, rolls up. And he couldn't quite grasp why I told him, I said, you have to message me before you come over when it's not your weekend.
Come over whenever you want,
but you
have
just
give us
tell
fucking
me.
Heads up.
Yeah, I'm like, buddy. And he like wasn't getting it. So finally I was like, okay, I have to pull out he's not going to forget this card. Yeah. And this is a kid old enough to process this.
Now this is my biological son.
Okay, well, we're narrowing it down. But I was like, okay, listen, buddy, you can't come over unannounced, because there's a very good chance we're having sex in the kitchen. And he was like, oh, okay. And I'm like, I need you to understand. This is the third time, and I had to pull out the like, you're not going to forget now. Yeah. That boy will message me, coming over, Sax.
He messages, but you weren't home the other day, and he came over, and I could hear the front door open, and like before I could even see him, his head even poked in. Hello, hey, it's Will. I'm here. Hey, we just called him out. I just called him out. Whatever. Fuck it. I forgot.
We should bleep it.
Yeah, who gives a shit? Look, we only have one son that can drive. That's not yours. That's mine. Okay. Anyways, God bless him. Will's such a freaking stud.
He's such a great kid.
He just comes over, but now he's like full send on. I'm announcing that I'm here.
I don't want to have to ever.
Yeah. But he was kind of oblivious to it, and it's
he's
just funny.
17. But look, like, he was old enough for me to be like, I'm sorry, buddy, but like, you can't come home unannounced.
And listen, kids are not dumb, man. We're not like freaking doing it in front of the kids. We're not stupid and perverted and shit like that. But no. Our kids are old enough now that they know what sex is. They do. And like, there's no hiding it. There's no shame around it. There's no like, we don't walk out down to the kitchen going, yo, we just totally fucked. Yeah.
No.
But like, listen, man, it needs to be important. Okay. Sex needs to be important. And if you're having struggles, like, you got to talk about this. But it's one thing I love about our dynamic, and I mean this, like, because I've always had this stigma around sex that, and I want you to back me up on this, right? There's been this stigma where it's like, we have to have sex, and I need to like cuddle you and make you feel like warm and fuzzy and safe and all of these things, and we need to have all of this like romance before and then romance after. That's what entitles me to be able to have sex, right? Mm-hmm. And you and I are different. Like, I'll just literally come in, pull your pants down, freaking go to town, and we're done. Like, high five, smack your ass, walk out, we're done. And like, my mindset has always been like, oh, that's like, there's this idea and there's a stigma, and I'm sharing this for a reason, because there's a lot of men that share this same reality, like that it's like nasty or it's dirty or it's like it's not, it's just kind of like you're being used for this experience kind of a deal. And at the end of the day, like one of the things that you and I have talked about, and you've been open about this, like, yo, you're my husband. If you want to fuck this, like, I'm all yours. Like, let's go. And
yeah,
right.
I mean, the truth is you married me, and
right.
I'm in our we have a monogamous relationship.
Right.
Like, I'm who you have sex with.
Right.
And so if I want it to be like that, I should probably be having sex with you. And that might sound super cold, but don't starve a dog. Like it's like one. If a man was not being nice to you and he's not fulfilling your needs as your partner,
right.
he's not taking you on date night, hint, hint, men. He's not writing you notes. He's not, getting you gifts, being thoughtful, like
just being a good dude.
Just being thoughtful.
Right.
Women love that they're seen and heard. They love their big emotions to be held, right? Like these are things that most dudes don't want to sit around when you're freaking being emotional, and they don't want to hear your shit. But if they love you, they're gonna sit around at least the majority of the time and be able to hold space for you,
right?
Because that's what we signed up for, is
right.
we get to stretch ourselves in ways that maybe we're not comfortable with or we don't prioritize because we chose to have a partner in this life,
right.
And it's not just my responsibility, but it's my privilege to be like connected to you and
right.
help you feel fulfilled in those ways that you can't necessarily accomplish on your own. And I don't want you to say like, oh, well, I need these needs met. You're not meeting them, so I'm going to go get them met somewhere else. Because
right.
I'm sorry, but that's what will happen. Like we all will eventually get what we want.
So I want you to share this really quick because I think this is a really important point, and this is all in this conversation. Like you've mentioned to me multiple times, a lot of people take words and things and they screw them up. They misconstrue them or whatever. But like, I'm yours, you're mine. That's what it is. Yeah. And you've said that to me. Like, look, you married me. I'm yours. Like, do what you want. Like, I'm here for you. And a lot of people are going to hear like, oh my God, that's so fucking what? Bullshit. You're one of those radical feminists where it's what, look, my wife's my queen, right? She sits on the throne with me, period, end of story. If you guys got a question about that, follow us for 15 minutes on social media and I'll prove that shit to you. And that ain't just for social media. Right?
No, that's
but
our relationship.
The truth of the matter is like, if I want to fuck, we're fucking. And that's just what it is. And but no, hang on.
No, I'm saying that that's because like that's the dynamic of our relationship.
Correct.
Because you're paying into that. And I shouldn't say paying into that because that also sounds like
$50. Peace out. I'm going back to work.
No, you're taking me on regular date nights.
But hang on. Just skip all that. You already talked about that. I want to get down to the.
I'm pressing the point because guys, like.
I know, but
that matters.
I want to assume that's that. I want women to hear from you, from the queen, like that's real and that's okay, because there's a lot of stigma around that. There's a lot of stigma around sex, especially with men and women and husband and wife, especially in a religious environment, especially across the board where it's like me just coming in and bending you over the couch and fucking you, like people are like, oh my God, number one, they get all worked up that we even talk about that, but it's truth, man.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's sacred. We should just keep that so sacred. What, that we have sex?
That is still
what,
sacred.
That we fucking enjoy having sex? But there are, I just want you to share that, and you've talked about it, because I really feel it's important for women to hear that their man coming in and just having sex with them and going right back to work or going on with their day, whatever, is not only number one, totally okay and totally acceptable, but I actually, and we've talked about this, that's actually really, really, really a cool spiritual experience that like, that I'm here, we're going, look, we got shit to do, but this is what we're doing right now. And I'm here with you. Like, this is the choice. This is the investment. This is where I want to be. This is what I want to do. And you stand in a different place with that because you talk about honoring that. You've said that, like, I honor that. Like, you don't feel used. You don't feel like you're just some slab of meat that I'm just, you know what I mean, doing whatever with. But like, this is how our dynamic really is.
I think it's great that my husband wants to go just get down with me. Like that, if you switch your mindset, ladies, of like, if your man wants that out of you and he's connected to you and he's pursuing you and he desires you, what's negative about that?
Yeah.
Like, what's negative?
Right.
Now, if you want to like create a story around that, that's your shit.
Right.
That's not his. Like, I want my husband to want me every day because that's awesome. Do you know what it feels like to be wanted every day? Like, the only other person on the planet that wants you that much is your 2-year-old when you're trying to take a piss, right? Like, mom. But I want my husband to want me every day.
Right.
That's like, when he stops wanting me, not that you would, but I'm saying anybody, if your husband stops wanting you, that's the negative part.
Right.
That's the like, oh, wait.
Yep.
So take it as how dope is it that he wants to be with you intimately every single day?
Yeah. And dude, the idea that he needs to give you flowers and rub your feet and give you chocolates and the whole thing.
Not every day.
In order to freaking
because if your man is
down.
providing for you and your offspring and those babies, and he's giving you the life to where you get to be a mother, or he's giving you the platform to pursue your dreams in your business or whatever it may be. Don't discredit a man that's providing for you and protecting you. Right. Because I've seen, and sometimes I'll even fall into that a little bit. I'll forget the things that are right. They're so close to my face, I lose sight of them. But it's like going to gratitude and being like, man, here's a man who provides, he pays the bills, he makes sure these kids are fed, like he protects me and my children. Like, don't discredit all of those little things that he does every day to be a great husband. Right. Now, the flowers and the notes and all that's fantastic. But if your man is working hard and he's showing up and he desires you, you're winning. Right. Like, you are.
Right. Amen. I love it. Okay. We got a couple of questions about like how vital is hormone replacement to your desire and your sex drive, and then there's another one that said husband says because he's 40 his sex drive isn't declined. I'm 35 and I'm like a rabbit. Is this really true? I'll just touch on this for 2 seconds. Like, at the end of the day, man, you got to get your shit checked. Period. End of story. Especially for you men. Like, I'm 45 and we have sex every day, and I don't take freaking pills for that. I don't need fucking help with any of that shit, right? I also go and I get my blood work done, and I do that for my health and my well-being, period. End of story. So there are a lot of men listening to this they don't even realize how fucked their hormones are. They don't even realize that their testosterone is like gone.
Testosterone is it's
literally
a wonder hormone,
right?
For men and women.
Men and women. So I just keep it super simple. Like, you can't blame your lack of sex drive on anything. Like, it should be for your health. It should be for your well-being, that you go get checked, that you go get your blood work done. And if your testosterone's gone or done or super, super low, go get it done. Fellas, newsflash. It's not just good for your sex life. It's good for your brain. It's good for your body. My body functions significantly better. I burn, calories more. My cognitive capacity is better, like taking testosterone and being on testosterone. Right. But that's because my body literally stopped making it. Yeah. Right.
Age is no excuse for that at all. And I just want to share a little something. My grandparents, they are, in their 80s now, and they're hilarious. And I remember when my grandma turned 70, he spent that whole day going around and telling anybody who would listen to him that and this is, okay, I'm just going to preface, like, these guys are wild. But he told everybody, like, I just fucked my first 70-year-old. And he just thought it was the funniest thing ever. But these two have the most wild, energetic sex life. And not that I know this, but they've always been very open and very animated and very forthcoming with their affections for each other. That my whole life, like, my grandma was a Playboy bunny, my grandpa was this wild craps dealer. Like, they're just party, fun-loving couple, right? And they've always been very vivacious in their relationship, and it's because they prioritize it. Therefore, if it started slipping or started, like whatever, they went and figured it out. And testosterone, because I'm not on it currently because of Hashimoto's and the whole thing, but I loved it. And I was on the tiniest dose. But it makes, ladies, if you're struggling with sex drive, I would go and maybe get that looked at.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to give medical advice, but I'm just saying I loved it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I had to come off of it, which is like,
we should get that checked again.
I would love to be on.
Let's get that looked at again, dear. Mental note. Okay. Someone text us, remind us. Okay. Good job.
Torque.
Okay. Last question. And this is, I think this is a really good one.
Okay.
We have a couple more, but I think this is a good place to wrap it up, and then we can do another episode. Quote, how would you handle a fantasy to bring other people into your sexy times? How would you handle a fantasy to bring other people into your sex life?
Well, the real question you want to ask yourself is this a fantasy, or is this something you want to make reality? Because I have heard about the dynamic of this in relationships, and I have never, this is just what I know, I've never known it to be a long-term positive thing.
Right.
Now, it doesn't mean that you can't figure that out. I don't know, like figure that out, maybe talk to a coach about how to do that without, but I don't like the imbalance of energy. So if I would imagine 3 people, that's an imbalance of energy, because I love the sexual connection, like the intimate connection of a monogamous sexual experience. To putting a third wheel is literally a third wheel, and that doesn't appeal to me.
Yeah. I think a lot of dudes, sorry, were you done?
Yeah, just like, and I honestly, I don't want to invite, I personally don't want to invite outside energy into my sacred marriage.
Yeah. I think a lot of dudes have this fantasy and this thing, and you know, it is what it is. Have I thought about it? Sure, we've talked about it.
Yeah.
But it's like, you know, what does it really mean? Does it mean like the actual practical reality of having sex with different people? Is it bigger than that? Is it like, I want to have different partners, all of these other things that are very easy to just talk about with your partner. You know, but at the end of the day, like, I think that there's a lot of things that can really, really, really be accomplished with communication. You know what I'm saying? And there's a lot of thought processes that women have, that a man has these thoughts and it makes him bad or it makes him wrong. And it's not true. I have wild, crazy thoughts all day long, right? I'd be in prison if they actually were public. But the truth of the matter is, guys have, and I suspect women probably have crazy, weird thoughts. Maybe not as carnal and primal and sexual as men, but maybe they do. I don't know. But the truth of the matter is, men think about shit all day long, right? And at the end of the day, I think that when you demonize the conversation around anything, you know, that's when you shut a guy off. That's when a guy just won't bring you shit. He won't talk about shit. So ladies, if your dude's talking to you about stuff, including threesomes or this or that or the other, welcome that. Welcome those conversations. Ask about it. Why? Be like, okay, cool. You want to have a threesome, two chicks? Cool. Then what about 2 dudes? Like, what if I bring a dude into the equation, right? You want to throw the motherfucker for a loop.
That might get him thinking that maybe he doesn't want to bring it.
So then all of a sudden he'd be like, that's really not my jam. Okay,
but
cool.
Why not?
We're good.
It sounds great.
Yeah, exactly. You want 2 chicks, me and another chick? Well, let's do me and another dude. Wait, you want to fuck another dude? My point is, you literally think about that for 2 seconds. Like, this is why communication is so important. Yeah. But this is why there really shouldn't be any conversation that's taboo, any conversation that's off limits, because then you shut it all down. Then you shut all of that desire for connection down. And once you do that, then what? You know what I'm saying? Then you get run into, it's like the ship it's just crashing against the rocks and you're fucked, right? Yeah. But like, I think that whether or not you choose to do this or you do that, I mean, look, the thing it's great about a relationship, and especially about sex, is like, we're evolving. Everything is evolving. My desires yesterday are not my desires today, and my desires today are probably not going to be my desires tomorrow. Are we going to have sex every single day when we're 70? I don't know. I'll let you know when we get there.
That'd be great.
It'd be great. We talk about it, but maybe we don't want to. I don't know. But the thing is like, when you start, we got a lot of questions, and a lot of them are around kind of the same thing. What about this and what about that? And 99.9% of these questions have some sort of negative undertone or problem or whatever that could legitimately, no questions asked, be remedied by communication. by just having a conversation.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? About anything. And I think like truly at the root of porn, of threesomes, of lack of connection, males' lack of connection, women's lack of connection, ladies not getting their needs met, dudes not getting their dick sucked, whatever it is, like across the board, you can solve a lot of shit with communication and being radically honest. You know, I did a post earlier today, and obviously the first half of this episode started yesterday, but I actually shared a clip from yesterday today, you know, and I was talking about the whole, you know, I'm tired thing. And the lady made a comment about how, well, you know, the path of least resistance is to say that I'm tired, but the truth is I'm not really sexually connected to him anymore. And naturally I did what I do. I just hemmed it all up and said, look, you're lying. You're literally lying. She's like, well, you don't understand. If I tell him the truth, or if I speak the truth, then it causes chaos and war. And I said, no.
That war needs to happen.
No,
because that
exactly.
needs, whatever that is that you're warring, that's what needs to break down and dissolve out of your relationship. You need to have that war, have that conflict, because hiding behind and pretending it's not there, you already know it exists. So why avoid it? Have the hard conversations now.
And this is a perfect way, I think, to end this, because what you're saying is dead on accurate. Ladies, listen to what the fuck she's saying. Fellas, same thing. I'm going to read you the exact exchange, because I truly believe like this is really a glaring dark spot on marriage, on connection, on sex. Like, is it possible to have a phenomenal sex life and be married? Yes.
Yeah.
Is it possible to have that with kids? Yes. As you can tell through these episodes, Sax and I don't get along all the time. Sometimes we're off. Sometimes I say shit and she doesn't like me and I don't like her. And it's real. And we don't fucking need to pretend that it's not, right? Like, you can say shit, well, I don't remember what you said, and that hurts my feelings because I remember texting you about being fucking, you know, crazy and sexy and saying, hey, let's sext while you're gone. And yeah, I know that you remember it now and blah, blah, blah. This is real world. This is real interaction. This is real fucking life. And a lot of people want to pretend that life isn't, or that we should be, or whatever. Fuck you and how we should be. This is real. But this is why I think so many people are fucked right now. This is why so many marriages are so screwed up right now, is because people don't tell the truth. They don't fucking tell the truth, right? This lady literally said, quote unquote, saying I'm tired is easier excuse than hurting your man's ego by saying you're not entirely satisfied with him and the way he interacts during foreplay or sex.
Hello? Then communicate what you want. He wants to please you.
Okay.
Don't waste his time.
Bingo.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Now my response was, that's called lying, and at no time would lying ever be, quote, easier than the truth. Would you agree? That's a great answer.
Well, does she not want to have great sex?
No, but
does she
listen,
not want
hang
him
on.
to know how to please her? What the heck?
Let me keep going.
I'm like dumbfounded.
She said, easier than truth, definitely not, but less volatile depending on the recipient. It takes a secure person to handle criticism, and teamwork needs to be established with the desire to reach a common goal together. Guess what, lady?
Secure and teamwork?
Guess what? You want a fucking teammate? Speak the fucking truth.
Be a teammate.
You want a fucking teammate?
You're lying to him before he even knows the rules of the game. You're hold on.
Yep.
Lady, okay, I'm saying this with love because I truly want you to have great sex and in a great marriage. Like, you're not being the teammate because you're not even giving him the full deck of cards to play with, and you're manipulating, because this is what a lot of people do. They'll manipulate. That is manipulation.
100%.
You'll manipulate, like, oh, well, I'm not going to tell him the truth, so their way I'm going to do this. But meanwhile, you're not getting the sex you want because you're not telling him the truth. You're not telling him what you want, so you're going to continue to get shitty sex. So he's going to continue to have a sexless marriage, when maybe you just speaking up could be the change the whole trajectory of your sex life and your marriage. But if you're the one that's aware that you're doing that in the first place, boom, it's on you.
Yep.
You just admitted it on the internet.
Right.
You told Sean Whalen more than you've told your husband.
Right.
Like, just put all of this in your bucket and look at it.
Like, my response to her was, you're literally justifying your own lying. Fathom that. This is exactly why this culture and most marriages are fucked, and you don't even see it. Because you're literally justifying your lying. You're saying, look, This is the path of least resistance. Fellas, you're just saying, look, I'll just look a little bit of porn and jerk off, and then I don't have to deal with my wife. I don't have to worry about all of this other stuff.
So sad.
Ladies, just, I'm just going to tell him. And and the reason that we can say this, the reason we can have this conversation and I can say what I'm saying and we can talk about this is because the statistics are 50% of marriages are ending in fucking divorce. 75% of all second and third marriages are ending. This is an epidemic. Let's call it what it really is. So if you think we're being dicks, if you think that we're being rude, if you think that you can think whatever you want, but we're not wrong because the statistics are in. And this is why it's falling apart. This is why this conversation is so needed and why we have to have it, and we choose to have it, because at the end of the day, half of you listening to this have been or will be divorced. Mm-hmm. It's the truth. It's the fucking facts. It's the statistics. So what are you going to do about it? Keep lying? How's that working out for you, lady? Fellas, keep jerking off looking at porn, being a fat sack of shit. How's that working out for you, fella? Like, ladies and gentlemen, if you chose a partner and you decided, let's do life together, let's put rings on each other's fingers, let's buy a house, bang out a couple of babies, fucking get some nice china and some silverware, I got a smoker for the backyard and a new pool, why the fuck wouldn't you just choose to go all in and fuck each other's brains out and learn to love the shit out of each other and tell the truth to each other? And if you smell like shit, tell him. If you don't like hairy fucking balls, then tell him to fucking shave his balls. If I don't like what you're doing, then fucking tell you I don't like what you're doing. If I want my dick sucked like this and not like this, I'm gonna fucking tell you. Because guess what? Guess what?
I love that.
You have a much better life that way.
Yes. I would rather you tell me what you want than me just doing what I think you want and you're not satisfied, and therefore I'm wasting my own time, when maybe just like tune it up a little bit. This having communication about how I want you to do this to me or vice versa, like there's literally no judgment in that. That's called open communication. Mm-hmm. Like there's nothing wrong with that.
Yep.
Oh.
I'll tell you exactly what I want. I'm going to end this podcast. We're going to go in my office and we're going to fuck like crazy. That's exactly what I want right now.
Well, your office is glass, so how about the bathroom?
All right, I'll just tell everybody stay downstairs. Don't come upstairs.
Okay, well, that's a wrap.
Anything else you'd like to share, babe?
Nope. I think that's great.
Yeah, we're gonna.
They don't care. We're done.
We're gonna end it there. We love you guys.
Okay, love ya.
Bye.
Bye.